Have you ever thought about how your emotions accumulate in your body and how to release them? And is it really true that they accumulate? And how are they showing up in life? You know, those hidden hurts, the traumas, the rage, the anger, the unfairness of life, all the different changes that have gone on in your life, how they accumulate in the body and actually change your chemistry from this sacred vessel that you and I walk around in. So I'm Georgie Holbrook. I'm an emotional mentor, but I'm also a holistic health teacher, and I understand the human body a great deal. I've taught a lot of people, but today we're going to talk about the emotions, right? So let's go back in history. You're a little child, you're 2 years old, you're running through the house, you're really happy, and then you knock your knee up against a table and it really hurts, and you start crying and wailing. And your caregiver can do one of several things. One is, there, don't cry. We've all heard that, right? I'll kiss it and make it better. I'll give you a piece of candy, anything to distract us from crying. Crying is actually a natural way of releasing the pain, but we don't know that, okay? So then say that you're really great at wailing, and then your caregiver says, go to your room, and when you're done crying, you can come out. So it's like crying has been this curse. But what's happened? Let's take it in slow motion. So you get hurt. And if you're allowed to cry, because that's what nature is calling you to do, you've been hurt. If you're allowed to cry, the fact of getting bruised and swelling is very unlikely. Maybe a little bit, but nothing like what I'm going to talk about. Okay, say that you're taught to just shut down that source, that crying, that wailing, and really acknowledging the pain. You're distracted from it, right? The fact of it turning black and blue and swelling and showing up even years from now in a knee issue is very likely, because I've worked with a lot of people that have had those kind of issues and haven't been able to tie them together. So we're taught not to feel our feelings. We're taught not to have compassion towards this body. We're taught just a lot of things that are false as far as taking care of ourselves. So let's go back and talk about what's going on. I'm Georgie Holbrook. I'm a holistic health educator, but I'm an emotional mentor. I work a lot around the emotions because, you see, we're taught to just talk about whatever happened. And talk therapy is great. I've done talk therapy for my own self in therapy. But talking about it is not going to budge it, because this is accumulated in our cells. This is accumulated in the memory of the body, and it wants to be released. So I'm going to teach you a technique today. So hang in there with me. So today, just breathe. Breathe in and ask yourself, so what's all gone down with my body? What are the different stories that I have? So as you take a breath and imagine that each one of these subjects is like a nagging thought in your head on some plane, right? Maybe you have 3 nagging thoughts. So let's just take 3 nagging thoughts. And you take each one and you hold it in your hand. So it might be a wedding that's coming up and you're really so stressed out about this big event and getting it perfect and whatever, and how you're going to show up. That can be a stress. It doesn't mean that it has to be bad, but it's the way that we hold the emotions, right? Maybe you just lost a loved one and you're trying to pretend like you're happy and that it's behind you. No. See, our stories are not behind us. We're carrying them with us internally in ourselves. So let's go a little further now. So take your subjects and imagine with me that they're like a rock that you have inside. Let's take the first one, whatever your subject is, and ask yourself, so where do I hold this story? Maybe it's in your throat, maybe it's in your heart, maybe it's in your lungs, maybe it's in your belly, right? Maybe it's just like, I'm always upset, Georgie, and I have digestive problems, and on, wherever it is. Maybe it's in your knees about moving forward in life, and you can't because you still have this story. So your honest body is telling your story whether you want it or not. So let's take the next rock. What is that story? What happened to you back then? And can you take it gently and set it alongside of you? maybe each rock in a really beautiful basket. And as you do that, you take the next rock, whatever that subject is, whoever upset you, whatever that story, you put it in a rock. This is just a guided imagery. You put it in that basket, okay? And when you get all done, you look at the basket and you say, so which one gets the most of my attention? Which one kind of calls me? This like the greatest wound or the greatest hurt. And then say, so where do I hold that in my body? Where do I hold that in my body? And you just go inside and you go, well, Georgie, I can't figure it out. Just guess at it. Pretend that you really know, right? So let's say that you hold it in your stomach. And then what would it be like if you can just leave it in the basket? So go there. What would my life be like if all these things that have happened to me, I could have put in my hands like in a rock and I put it in the basket? What would I be? Who would I be if I didn't have these things in my life that were nagging me and still in my memory about the past hurts and where I'm reacting in life? See, we keep reacting in life because they're triggers inside of us and we want to release them. So this is just a small little demonstration. What would life be like? Who would you be? And who would you hang around if your life is free of all these accumulated emotions, right? Who would you be? How would you show up? Who would be in your life? And then who would not be in your life? Who would you walk away from and say, no, I'm a new person now. I'm not a follower anymore. I'm not weighed down by all these stories. I'm letting them go. I'm going to forgive myself for ever thinking that it was my fault because I wasn't trained how to release them and how to show up in life for myself, always showing up to serve other people until I'm exhausted serving other people, because that's what I was trained to do. I was trained that I'm a nobody, that I'm a wounded person because of my past. And now I'm letting it go because Georgie says, it's okay to let it go, right? It's okay to let it go. So I'm going to give you a little piece of my story. I had emotional pain from the time I was little. My mother gave birth to 3 babies that all passed away within hours. My little sister lived 1 day. I was the firstborn. So what am I going to do as a little kid watching this death after death after death? What am I going to be storing in my body? I'm going to be storing that, man, maybe my life is short. Maybe I'm going to be dying also because I'm just a little kid, right? My sister died when I was 3. So by the time I'm 6 years old, my mother had lost these 3 children. But it became a sadness in our house that literally was heavy. It felt like you could cut the sadness and the grief with a knife. It was so heavy. And the conversation was always around business and trying my mom and dad to distract themselves from the sadness of what was really going on. We had no means of releasing the emotion behind it. So I'm sure that you have stories also where you just hang on to this stuff and you just try to cope with life, you try to deal with life, but there's no training to tell you this is how it's accumulated in your body, and let me teach you how to release it rather than going through life. So what happened to my mom? My mom just had one surgery after another surgery after another surgery. It was in her knees, it was in her hips, it was in her back, it was in her spine. She had spinal surgery. It never ended. But see, I was just a little kid when all this was going on, so I didn't know what I know today because I've healed. I've healed layers and layers, and there's probably still some layers about the hidden hurts in my life and how they showed up. One was that I had a voice teacher. I sang in the choir. I sang in the school choir, in the church choir. My voice teacher was just like, he was my cheerleader. He was the love of my life. And as a 8-year-old, right, he just took me and he polished me in my voice and whatever. But then when I was like 14, he died. He was in a car accident, and my voice died also. In the same time frame, I was raped. I was date raped on my first date. So I had two whammies, two emotions that caused me to have what's called a frozen emotion, where you just freeze in time and you go on with your life. But drugs and alcohol weren't available to me when I was 16 and 15, but work was. And so I held down two jobs and went to high school. I worked till midnight most every night of the school year and went to high school. And I was bragged on, right? I was bragged on because I was making money and my dad bought me a car and on and on. But see, no, I was running. I was trying to, inside, if I would have died, I would have been happy because I had these grieving losses that were so deep inside of myself. So it took me 20 years before I could reclaim my voice. And it's taken me years to recover from that incident when I was raped as a 14-year-old. But the good news is, I'm Georgie Holbrook. I'm a holistic health educator. I teach people how to maintain this body well, how to release those emotions. And I somehow gather a lot of women that have many, many stories about how they were injured. Now, I have some men also, but it's mostly women that find me. And I would love to mentor you and help you release these emotions. So from my heart to yours, click the link below, come into my life. Let's share, and let's not go through life where at the end of our life, we still have accumulated emotions because we haven't been taught how to release them. We don't have to relive them, but this sacred body has been keeping score, just like a bank account, and saying, this is it. Come and see me, and we can cash in that bank account and free you up to live your purpose and passion rather than having health issues coming down the line that you just think it's not related to your emotions, but it is. It is. I'll just guarantee you it is. I've done this now for 30 years. Georgie Holbrook, click the link below, and I look forward to seeing you, helping you, and together, see, we can help not only ourselves, but we can help a lot of people by living by example of what it's like to have this freedom. And first of all, you have to understand how our emotions accumulate. And then once you understand, I can teach you how to release them in easy ways. I do guided imagery with people because from the neck up, logic and talking about it isn't going to budge it. But from the neck down, I can teach you how to release it very easy. And it takes whatever it's going to take. Healing takes whatever it is going to take. You see, I have 5 books, and I would love for you to just join me on the link below. Take care. And from my heart to yours, healing is possible. And we're not going to cope with life anymore and have all these issues in our body telling our story. Let's just free our body up, our sacred soul, to live our passion. Bye for now.